In the world of music, there have been multiple brutal and horrifying stories that would give any rational human the shivers. Some are tragic, some are simply insane, and then we have the ones that defy any common sense for how insane they are. Today, I'm not going to make a list, but instead to tell you about a tragic story that became even more horrifying as time went on. Roll the intro. Like I mentioned before, there are some bizarre stories in the world of music. You have the example of GG Allin, a punk rock musician known for his peculiar, extreme performances. From going absolutely naked into the mosh pit with the crowd, vomiting, defecating live, and even cutting himself while performing. You also got myths like the story of Silencer, a black metal group whose stories are still debatable to this day. Allegedly, the singer was so mentally unstable that voices in the industry tell the tales of how he used to cut himself to achieve better screaming in his songs. It is also stated that he cut some pig paws and stitched them in his stumps. It's also mentioned that due to a mental breakdown, he went running into the street with an axe and almost killed a little 6-year-old girl with it before being institutionalized. But, like I said before, none of that was 100% confirmed, and it's still discussed to this day. With that said, we've got a confirmed case of a showman willing to do anything to make his concerts a unique experience, and a myth regarding a black metal singer who confused passion with insanity. What could be any more brutal than this? Well, this story is not necessarily the main label of this band, but it is something really hard to forget, as nothing like this has ever been seen before, and hopefully we'll never get to see again. Let me introduce you to this successful Swedish black metal band, Mayhem. Black metal may not be your cup of tea when it comes to music, but if there's something we can't deny is the dedication these musicians have for their craft. A very chaotic and fast style made only for certain audiences that requires a lot of skill, sacrifice, and appeal. And it's fair to say that all the members from the band Mayhem have everything they need for that, but there is one member who used to take it a bit far. Meet Dead. Real name, and forgive me for butchering his name, GG Allin, commonly known as Pelle, was the main singer of the band from 1988 to 1991. Indeed, he passed away, but that's not the reason his nickname was Dead. The reason for that is because of his troubled personality and obsession with death itself. You see, it is discussed to this day if Dead was the first musician to ever wear corpse paint, makeup crafted for black metal musicians to provide a distinguished look. In the case of Dead, he wore this makeup because he tried his best to look as close as possible to a corpse. But that's not everything. You could say that he was very committed to his craft, or that he was mentally insane, both arguments being perfectly valid. Dead didn't think the looks of a dead corpse were enough. He would also bury his stage clothes and dig them up again to wear the night of a concert. Mayhem drummer Hellhammer even stated once he even asked us to bury him in the ground. He wanted his skin to become pale. If that wasn't enough, Dead would also carry around a bag with him all the time and sniff it before a concert. What was inside this bag? Nothing more than a dead crow he found on the road. He loved the smell of rotten flesh and bones and needed some inspiration to perform live. And no, this was not the only dead animal he kept with him. He also kept dead birds under his bed. Dead was in fact so committed to his art that at a concert where there were around 300 people listening to their songs, he started to throw bloody pig heads at the crowd. The reason? Because he wanted to get rid of the posers. That concert ended up with just 50 people, and he enjoyed every second of it. His statement, "If someone doesn't like blood and rotten flesh thrown in their face, they can f*** off." And that's exactly what they do. After telling you all of this, you would expect me to tell you that he was a sociopath with his co-workers, family and friends, being so openly obsessed with death and extroverted during his concerts, right? Well, not really. If anything, Dead was the total opposite. According to the people who knew him the most, he was introverted, awkward, melancholic, dark, and depressed. Euronymous, the band's founder, stated once, "I honestly think Dead is mentally insane. Which other way can you describe a guy who does not eat in order to get starving wounds, or who has a t-shirt with funeral announcements on it?" And the truth is that, yes, he was mentally sick. From tales of constantly telling dark jokes about taking his own life more than once, to gutting himself in front of his friends, forcing them to hold him to the ground, and sometimes even locking himself in his bedroom for days with no real contact with anyone. And unfortunately, after all these indications of Dead's mental health rapidly declining, on April 8 of 1991, Dead finally ended his life in the most horrifying way. First, he cut his wrists, then proceeded to slice his own throat, and if that wasn't enough, he picked up the shotgun and finished his existence immediately. Dead was only 22 years old when he passed away, and he left a brief goodbye note which started with the line, "Excuse the blood," showing that even in the worst possible moments, he still had the darkest bit of humor still intact. But the story isn't over, as this seems more like a depressing story than a horrifying one. This is where the true, crude human nature kicks in. Euronymous, the band's founder I mentioned earlier, had a beef with Dead, and these two did not get along. From constantly fighting each other, threatening to stab each other, and escalating discussions to points of no return, Euronymous is suspected to be the one who pushed Dead to commit such acts. This is backed up by other members' stories in which Dead would make a self-deletion joke only for Euronymous to say, "Do it," or "That would be a great idea, actually." And if fate wasn't cruel enough, the one who found Dead's body was Euronymous himself. By the time he found the body, the most humane and reasonable thing to do would be to call the police, the ambulance, the firefighters, anyone who would assist you with that. But not Euronymous. He had a different idea in mind. He left the house and abandoned Dead's body. He went to a nearby shop to purchase a disposable camera, went back into the house and took a picture of Dad's body rotting, even rearranging items on the room to make the picture more artistic. Only then he would call the emergency services. There is a silver lining to this mess, and that is that the other band members did not like what Euronymous did a single bit. In fact, they were furious, disgusted, and ashamed to have this rotten human being as a band member. Negrabotcher, another band member, not only left the band but also ended his friendship with Euronymous forever. But wait, because the story isn't over yet. It was rumored that the band members later proceeded to eat a stew with Dad's brain and made necklaces with bits of his skull. The band had to step forward and let everyone know that this story is false. But just the first part. According to them, the necklace part is true, and they give necklaces like those to musicians they deem worthy. Now, all of this may be pure marketing and disrespect towards another band member, but there is one thing that is true with evidence to back it up. Remember when I told you that Euronymous took a picture of Dad's corpse? Well, he initially promised to delete the photo, but later he changed his mind and went to develop it at a record shop. After he got it, this same photo was sent to the owner of War Master Records, and the reason? It was used as a cover art for a bootleg live album called The Dawn of the Black Hearts. You did not mishear anything. A picture of a real young man with his wrists open, a sliced throat, a gunshot in his head, and brains all over the bed was commercially used to sell CDs. This would be the last time they would use Dad's passing to commercialize their work, as there was a previous one for their CD, Live in Lipstick, which contained a small fraction of Dad's self-deletion note. I am not a human being. This is just a dream, and soon I will wake.